As we sum up the two games, I said it last week, I'll say it again, we couldn't have asked for more in the sense of playing two championship-level programs and two different teams where they were very guard-oriented last week and playing through the post with a postman, and this team obviously is so skilled at the forward and wing positions. And it was very good for us. We had a couple of great runs in both games, and we've had a lot to learn from both games. And tonight's game, we had a 23-0 run. I think we held them scoreless on 11 possessions. We got better. I mean, we really did. And we carried that to the end of the half. The second half, we had to make a lot of adjustments because they adjusted the game. And they used their spacing, and they used their screening, and they used the fact that they have very good long-range shooters at the forward position, and it made us adjust. And I thought that was very good for us as well because we had to do some things on the fly, things that we haven't covered as much conceptually yet, and guys had to figure it out. And we figured it out with some matchups, and we were on some limits with minutes a little bit tonight with a couple of guys, and some guys that are recovering and were banged up with injuries, or I shouldn't say injuries, but banged up over the weekend, so we wanted to keep the minutes limited as we prepare for the first game Friday night. But a good adjustment game for us, and we learned a lot of things, and the biggest thing that our team has got to take away is the champions play to the final second, all right? They never go away. They're well coached, they're very skilled, they're versatile, they do different things. And when you're going against teams like that, you have got to be engaged. You got to have not only mental toughness, but tremendous mental quickness to be able to get into the game immediately. And you got to impact the game. And some guys tonight did a very good job of impacting the game. Some other guys not so well. That's why we have competition. And when you've got the level of where we want to go when it comes to playing a pace and a speed of the game, you need depth. But before you have depth, you got to have real competition, and consistency leads. Or hopefully, the competition brings the consistency, and that's what we're in the midst of finding out right now. So, if we had a bigger list of positives than we would concerns, then we'd be lying to ourselves, just like most teams would this time of year. We're 2 games in the exhibition season against 2 outstanding teams, outstanding programs. And we've had a lot of different things we've had to deal with inside of those 2 games, and now we're getting ourselves ready for Friday night. So.
First question, Zach?
I guess talking about that, and I know we probably talk a little bit too much about all the size you added, but at both ends of the floor, do you feel like there's still some things guys are working through with having that size just because of how unconventional maybe you were at times last year and having to get used to just having those bodies and what's different about having size?
Oh, well, that'd be definitely, without a doubt. But I think the biggest thing is the defensive part of it. And when to help, when not to. We game planned for certain players, more so in this game than we did last game with how we wanted to cover them. And but at the same time, we knew we were going to see great skill level, I thought, from their forwards, which was going to challenge us. And it did. It really did. And so we've got to get used to our best teams have been able to just say, okay, we're going to switch everything and we'll figure it out as we go. We're not there yet. We're not there in that position and that's what last year's team could do that because there wasn't as much of a size differential in our lineups. But now there is, so we've just got to continue to develop that. But that's where athleticism and awareness and staying in a stance and all those kind of things come into it. So we'll adjust.
Coach, in that 18-0 run in the first half, just talk about what you did really well on defense, especially within that run. We
challenged everything, and when we were late and in rotation, we got great shot challenges. We rebounded the ball, and we did a really good job of not overhelping. We played the rules that we had on a couple of guys. We didn't try to have it in mid-season form on what our rules were on players, but a couple of them. And I thought they did a really good job of that. But I give Scott a lot of credit for what he did in the second half. He came out and he spread the court. And our length and our quickness was more of a factor in the first half. And then he really stretched this out, which made our communication and especially on the ball screen become a real factor. and it exposed it a little bit. So we've got to get better. But I thought we really did a good job of being aggressive. We had a ton of deflections in that time span, and we came down and got really good shots on the offensive end.
Jeff?
You talked about the defense and some of the things obviously aren't a mid-season form. What's your biggest concern and kind of what's the next thing that you want to get, sort of moved ahead as the regular season starts?
For the players to understand how competitive it is right now. I think that's the biggest thing. They truly understand that if we're going to be a two-deep team, we can't have a drop-off either way. It's not about who the 5 starters are. It's having everybody capable of really impacting the game. Players, fans, maybe even sometimes some of you look at it and put a lot on the starting lineup. I don't. I look at how we start, right? How we start is more, and that's where the starting lineup comes in. Are we going to come in with a good mindset? But it's really how you finish. So I think that's the biggest thing. But there's a lot of things that we've got to get better at. I think can we continue to deal with the spacing from another team, and at the same time, can we deal with a team that wants to pound it in? And there's got to be ball pressure in every one of those aspects. And tonight in the second half, that wasn't as good for us.
Yeah.
Coach, this is the second game in a row where you really had to adjust during the game, like you said. What's kind of the key to learning those things on the fly, like you said, kind of tossing things that they...
Well, shared responsibility on the court, where they don't just assume that the other person knows it, okay? Especially when you're doing things that they haven't done a lot of. But it's like offense. It's conceptual. Okay, if we're going to switch to a front, then we're going to switch to a front. Okay, and we've worked so hard on covering the ball screen a couple of ways, so we get really good at that. All right, that we've got to go to the other parts now. I mean, there's so many different ways to guard it because there's so many different ways to attack it, and now that's what we've got to build on. So in answer, with Jeff's question, okay, can we keep getting our concepts and our base down, and at the same time start to make those adjustments that we've got to be able to go to in a drop of a hat? And so that's a part of it. But calling out the screens early and not getting screened, once you're helping on the ball and recovering, those are big things. But I love it. We'll learn a lot from the film from that.
Tom, if you don't get the drop-off, if guys play at the level you want them to play, I mean, how big a rotation could you play?
I'm not sure yet. I think I don't want it to be game to game because then you don't have consistency. Now game to game will be matchups, and that may be lineups as we go. But you want a level of consistency in all of your guys. That's when it's truly too deep. It's truly too deep when they feel it's too deep because you've got to go to a high level. You don't want any nervousness. You don't want anxiety. You want a heightened level of awareness and an urgency, okay? And you have to be ready coming off that bench. Whether you started the game and got subbed or whether you're a sub, you have to be ready because the level of play that we're facing and going to face, these games come down to possessions, and it's rarely ever the one that's just at the end, right? That's the one that everybody remembers, but it's the ones during the game where somebody wasn't locked in. And that's what we've got to learn. So I learned some things tonight too, which will be good that I'll be able to put into account as we move forward.
Okay, Coach, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep.